This is for,
The Horizon Scholars.
yes,
Yeah.
I remember that. I didn't have enough points last time.
74, 75 better not show up.
I know. I really didn't have.
Is that how many they said they needed? Yeah, that's what they're going to get. And you counted them, I'm sure. You ready?
Yes.
Ready?
Yes.
Good evening. Welcome to the April 24th regular City Commission meeting. I ask that all of you either turn off your cell phone or put it on silent, and we'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silent meditation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Starting off, we have 4 proclamations. First one is for National Drinking Water Week, and I ask that Joel Mankin, Waterworks. Thanks, sir. Welcome. Whereas water is our most valuable and important natural resource, playing a vital role in our daily lives, and whereas a safe, reliable water supply is critical to the success of our community. It creates jobs, attracts industry and investment, provides for the health and welfare of citizens in ways ranging from disease prevention to fire suppression and the quality of life we enjoy. Whereas each citizen of the City of Leavenworth is called upon to help protect our source waters from pollution, to practice responsible water conservation, and to get involved in local water issues. And whereas the water produced by the Leavenworth Water Department is the most reliable and best tasting water in all of Leavenworth County. Now therefore I, Mark Prising, our Mayor of the City of Leavenworth, hereby proclaim May 6th through 12th, 2018 as Leavenworth Drinking Water Week. And congratulations, sir. And in my opinion, and I think everyone's opinion here, is water in Leavenworth is outstanding. Just the thought that you can just turn on the faucet, put a glass underneath it, and drink it without any problems is just absolutely amazing. I think many of us have traveled to parts of the world that would be just a dream. And here it's, somebody gets mad if the water's shut off for a half an hour, you lose your power for 15 minutes. But the water service from Leavenworth Water Works is outstanding, has been since, what, 1888? But you have the mic.
Didn't really have too many comments. I appreciate the comments you've made. I know my staff does. They work very hard to keep things going, keep it up, and take care of it. As your Public Works Director commented a couple of years ago that we used to bring gifts for you. So I thought I'd do the same thing yesterday and offered up a, if I can get it out of here now, a ball cap for everybody on the commission.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I don't know. I don't think so.
No, not a ball cap type person.
Thank you.
Sir, thank you. Thank you, Joe.
Cool. And of course, for Mike, the one thing he really wanted the last time I was here, an official pencil. Brand new eraser and everything.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Ready? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, congratulations.
Thank you.
Next item is Small Business Week. When you say. Good evening. Okay. Whereas from the storefront shops that anchor Main Street to the high-tech startups that keep America on the cutting edge, small businesses are the backbone of our economy and the cornerstone of our nation's promise. And whereas small business owners and Main Street businesses have energy and a passion for what they do, and whereas when we support small businesses, jobs are created, local communities preserve their unique culture. Whereas the President of the United States has proclaimed National Small Business Week every year since 1963 to highlight the programs and services available to entrepreneurs through the U.S. Small Business Administration and other government agencies. And whereas the City of Leavenworth, Kansas supports and joins in this national effort to help America's small businesses do what they do best, grow their business, create jobs, and ensure that our communities remain as vibrant tomorrow as they are today. Now, therefore, I, Mark Preisinger, Mayor of the City of Leavenworth, hereby proclaim April 29th through May 5th, 2018 to be National Small Business Week.
Thank you. You all are blessed with a wonderful downtown community, small businesses throughout the community. They are the lifeblood. They are the folks that'll be your friends. They will provide an experience, and so that's what many people are looking for. So please explore and take a look at all the great small businesses in this community and other communities as you travel as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy.
Next item is proclamation for Arbor Day. Steve Grant, Director of Parks and Recreation. Welcome, sir. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for planting of trees. And whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with planting more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees in the city of Leavenworth, Kansas increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. Now therefore, I, Mark Preisinger, Mayor of the city of Leavenworth, hereby proclaim April 27th, 2018 to be Arbor Day. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for this proclamation. Though we're not going to plant 1 million trees, we are going to have a tree planting ceremony this Friday that I would like to invite everybody to. We'll be planting a tree at 11 a.m. this Friday, which is Arbor Day, in honor of the late Phyllis Bass. We will be planting it in front of the Richard Allen Cultural Center at 4th and Kiowa. Again, that is at 11 o'clock this Friday, so I invite everybody to attend.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Next item is National Travel and Tourism Week. Whereas travel to and within Kansas provides significant economic benefits for the state, it generated more than $10.8 billion in economic impact in 2016, $6.6 billion spent directly by travelers. Whereas travel is among the top 10 private sector employers in Kansas, it is supporting 95,000 plus jobs in 2016, including 63,700 directly in the travel industry and 31,300 in other industries. Whereas meetings, events, and incentive travel are core business functions that help companies strengthen business performance, educate employers and customers, and reward business accomplishments. In 2016, domestic and international business travelers spent $2.6 billion in Kansas. Whereas leisure travel, which accounts for more than 60% of all trips taken in Kansas, spurs countless benefits to travelers, health and wellness, creativity, cultural awareness, education, happiness, productivity, and relationships. Whereas the city of Leavenworth realized more than $7 million from overnight visitor expenditures in 2017, validating the unique significance of the American travel industry in the lives of the citizens of Leavenworth, Kansas. Now, therefore, I, Mark Preisinger, Mayor of the city of Leavenworth, hereby proclaim May 6th through 12th, 2018 to be National Travel and Tourism Week.
On behalf of Christy Lee and the CVB, we thank you, Mayor, for the proclamation. And just to let you know, this year's theme for National Travel and Tourism Week is Travel Then and Now. And we've had a lot of fun going back through lots of old photographs of locations, destinations, and attractions here in the city of Leavenworth. And we're going to be showing the then and now photos. And we've got lots of great accomplishments over the last few years that we can really show the differences between travel then and now. So we're looking forward to sharing those.
Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda, minutes from the April 10th, 2018, regular meeting. Any comments, changes, deletions?
No.
Not, I'll take a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the minutes of the April 10, 2018 regular meeting.
I second it.
Motion and a second to accept the minutes from the April 10th, 2018 regular meeting. Begin voting, Commissioner Griswold.
Aye.
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 Aye, passes 4-0, thank you. New item is citizens' participation. This part of the meeting is reserved for any citizen that care to address the commission or present petitions to the clerk. And we ask that if you are going to speak, that you speak on something that is not on tonight's agenda. There's another time to speak to those items. Does anyone care to speak? Yes, ma'am. Please come up to the podium and give us your name and address. And
Hello. My name is Terry Downing, and I'm with Kansas Palliative and Hospice Care. And I know everyone's phone's off and all of that good stuff, but my granddaughter called me on the way here, just for some news. They arrested the Energizer Bunny, like around 6:30.
well, the police chief's right back there. You can talk with him about that one.
Okay.
Okay, what's the punchline?
For battery.
What?
He was arrested for battery.
Oh.
Yay, made everybody smile. I'm sorry, Mayor.
That's fine.
Well, so I am a marketing rep for Kansas Palliative and Hospice Care, and new to the area. We have done some things with the veterans, so we have a veterans initiative, but what I wanted to bring to all of you is that we are a new hospice, not a new hospice, we've been around for about 3.5 years. However, we don't have a big presence in Leavenworth, so that is my job to bring that to everyone's attention. 53% of our seniors in the community are passing away without hospice, and this is a huge thing because we are all entitled to it. It's something that we have paid into since we first started working. It's not a death sentence that everyone thinks it is. The earlier that we can get patients on hospice, the more benefit they can get from it. Furthermore, there are people in our community that don't know that there's hospice available for them, whether it costs too much or they're too prideful to ask for help. So anyway, that's what I want to do. So if you guys know anyone that's in the community that needs hospice, that have questions about hospice, we're here. I have cards, and I am hoping that we are become one of the bigger parts of Leavenworth as far as senior care and hospice goes. So, and I have way more jokes. So. Anyway, so I appreciate you letting me talk, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Anyone else care to speak to the commission? If not, we'll close that portion of the meeting. Oh, well, I'm sorry, I didn't see you, sir. Come on up to the lectern there.
On the agenda, I know it's a hot topic now with the fees for the drainage systems, but my name's John Owens. I live at 3110 Fox Hill Street here in Leavenworth. Grew up in Leavenworth, left at age 21, did 22.5 years in the Navy, and spent another 10, 12 years in California before coming back to my old hometown. I bought this place 12 years ago. Fox Hill is a little small, you may be aware of it. Anyway, I bought this place, and there was a creek. As I was a kid, I think it was like 8 Mile or 5 Mile Creek, except it all starts at my place now, because everything else has been drainage system up to that point. So I asked the gentleman I bought the house from, I said, what do you do to get to the other side of your property? Because I have quite a bit of property on the other side of the creek. He said, well, I was going to build a bridge. So I thought, not a problem, I can do that. So I proceeded, ordered from Beverly Lumber, and they dropped it off at my front door because I had no access to the back. Because I'm landlocked in here, because my property abuts the soccer field. And that's a soccer field across from the middle school. So I built a bridge, and that was fine for about 4 years. But it keeps eroding my property, and so I have a heavy-duty bridge. If someone cares to visit, it's 3110 Fox Hill Street, and you can see what the erosion has happened there, because I'm losing property every year. My taxes aren't going down. My value, they say, is getting more value. I'm not sure I could get that with the way the lot is right now. So I've got the drainage system. There's a 48-inch pipe. And 7 yards away from that, there's a 36-inch pipe. And then 7 foot away from that, which is right next on my property, there's a 18-inch pipe. When those are going and the flood water is coming through there, I would invite anybody to look at the boulders and things that have eroded out of the system, and it's enough that it carries these giant boulders all the way down. So I guess my plea is, I understand it. I see it's something the city is taking up, and I'm hoping that Jermaine Wilson came out, and city manager's been there, Mr. Kramer, so they're aware of the situation. I've also got pictures on my phone. I didn't have anything to project it large enough to show you, but it's amazing what that amount of water can do. When I first moved here 12 years ago, I started on my bridge, I got a hold of Mike McDonald in his office. The first thing I was greeted with was trying to get an appointment. The lady in there told me, you had a choice to have that filled in when you moved in there. I didn't have that choice. The gentleman that built the house and lived there for a year before he sold it to me. So I never, and I have talked to Mike about the problem, and he was going to take the city manager. Now that wasn't with Paul, that was several city managers ago. And I didn't hear anything, so I called again, and I was told that the city manager didn't see a problem. And that was the last I bothered to address that issue here like that. So I guess I'm just asking for my old hometown to help me out here, so.
Well, thank you, Mr. Owens, for speaking. I've seen pictures and I've been apprised of your situation. With this, the stormwater fee that we're going to, I think, will be implementing, and the stormwater projects that we'll be working on in the city, I'm sure your property will be on the list. When it'll be on the list, I don't know. We've got, at best estimate, around $80 million worth of work to be done in the city, and so that project's going to take a long time, as you can well imagine. But we have, I know I've been apprised of your property, I know Commissioner Wilson has, and the city manager has, but I cannot give you a date, promise date when it will happen, but we do know of the issue, and I know sympathize doesn't mean much to you, but understand what you are dealing with. You have 3 big drain pipes coming out right in your property.
At 82, I hope it happens sometime in the future.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
I don't know how long I can hold out. So, but anyway, thanks for your time, and I will look forward to whatever action happens.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Owens.
Anyone else care to speak? I miss any other hands? If not, close that portion of the meeting. Next item is request for a reduction of special assessment fees for 613 South 10th Street.
Our city clerk, Carla Williamson, will handle this item.
On April 9th, Michael Burgess requested that the city commission consider reduction to special assessments and leasing fees on a vacant lot located at 613 South 10th Street. The property was previously listed, along with other properties for sale during the county's, 2016, sales, tax sale. The property wasn't sold during the sale, but it remains on a list, and anybody at any time can go in and make an offer on the property. And Mr. Burgess has been talking to the county and would like to make an offer on the property. However, there are some significant, nuisance fees on the property. And prior to making that commitment, he wanted to, ask the city commission to consider doing a reduction of those fees. Mr. Burgess, has indicated that he would like to use the property, for a garden. And, in past, requests, the city commission, has typically, if they grant the request, looked at the cost, the actual cost incurred by the city of the mowing, and then added administrative fees, for each year that those were put on. So if the city commission were to decide to do that, the cost would be, $583.60, and then a $100 administrative fee for each of the 3 years, bringing that to $883.60. The city commission can use that same formula, you can deny the request, or you can come up with some other, reduction that you would like to, consider.
Okay.
Mr. Burgess is here this evening. Go ahead and step up.
You want to speak, Mr. Burgess?
Sure.
You can grow some tomatoes?
Yes, sir, I'd like to. The property's been down there, I don't know, probably 4 years vacant. And I know the city's putting out the money out on it. I live just the next door up. I don't have enough yard. I like to build a garden and show my 6-year-old how my grandfather did. He owned the property across the alley for 50 or 60 years, Odie Imler. And I understand the city's got past things due on it. I really don't feel that would be for me, but if you just would look at what you got a total for me today to give you to pay it, it needs a grass cut now. So that's your first one. You're gonna have, the city's gonna have $300 or $400 into that again, just to start the season. I'm just.
When, Mr. Burgess, if we do, right now we have $583 in just mowing charges, and our normal procedure has been charge $100 for each mowing season for the administrative cost, because they've sent out letters, I know, not to you and things like that. And the city does not break it even on this. So that'd be, I think the city clerk said $883.60. If there was a motion approved by this commission, could you live with $883.60?
Yeah, I'm just a working man. I just want to put a garden in there and mow it and save you guys the future. I mean, if you just for grins, if you just said, okay, Mike, you can go ahead and buy it without all the back fees, I'm gonna save you $1,000 this year in mowing. You know, I just wanna have a simple garden and take care of the piece of property.
Our mowing charges are $23.41 per mowing. We charge administrative fees.
Right, and your administrative fees. I'm gonna say a total, you know.
Well, I'm in favor of treating it as we've treated other properties. I have no idea what you might pay for it. I'm sure that you can get it at a good rate, but however much you get it for is none of our business. But to be consistent with other property owners and requests from citizens, I'm in favor of total cost to be $883.60, which is the recoup cost of all of our mowings, and the $100 a year administrative fee that clerk is at. Clerk's office has spent more than that, but that's we normally charge. So, any questions of Mr. Burgess by the commission?
And that's down from 7,000.
Yeah, it's $7,033.60.
I mean, it's nothing that can be built on. I've been told by the city, it's just a piece of dirt.
Right.
You know, it's gonna just be, if I can't get a deal on this year, you're gonna have another year of charges on it. That's all I'm looking at, you know?
How close to you, I mean, if we were, how close to you are you to purchasing the property? I mean, if we could work something out. How close to you are you to purchasing the property? I mean, how long would that take?
Tomorrow.
Who do you buy it from?
I understand you got a couple of years worth of stuff on it, but that, you know, I understand what your point is and where you stand, but That's not a concern of mine. I'm just trying to fix the future and put a garden in.
I completely understand and appreciate it, but I also have to protect,
I know.
protect the interest
I
of the
mean,
city. If
I
see
can
both
bow
sides-
down and wait and see what happens next year.
Yeah,
You know, I mean, I just thought I'd come and talk to you and check and see and take a shot in the dark at it.
yeah, I understand.
I just don't see how you could purchase it that quickly. I mean, am I missing something, or?
Are we allowed to ask the fee? How much he's purchasing it for?
No, I mean, it's none of our, I mean, we can ask him, but
Right,
he
yeah.
doesn't have to answer, it's none of our business if he's paying $1 million for
Carly,
it
you can
or a nickel
elaborate on the
for it.
process.
Yeah, the process is, the county each year, typically each year they have a tax sale at the end of the year. They haven't had one, they didn't have one in 2017, I'm not sure if they'll have one this year, so the last one they had was in 2016. They list those, people can come and place bids, to purchase the property. If nobody places a bid on the property, it still remains on their list and for sale, and anybody can come, go to the county. Roger Mars actually administers this portion of it, and they can go in at any time and say, I'll place a bid on that property for, whatever they would like to.
I see. I
To
didn't
offer
realize that.
for it.
Yeah.
But in situations like this, where there are fees
Fees,
on
right.
it.
Okay. Yep.
It's not uncommon for a citizen to come and ask for that. And I just wanted to, if you're looking at those costs, you see the one from July 7th, 2017 for $250. That isn't a typo, that was a tree and some brush that was removed. So that's why that one, if you're kind of wondering what that fee is for.
Any other questions?
Well,
If not, I'll take a motion. I will make the motion.
I'm
I'm
thinking.
not sure what to move. I'm
Okay,
still
I'll
thinking
make a
here.
motion that, to offer to Mr. Burgess, the property at 613 South 10th, for, reduce the assessments and admin fees from $7,033.60 to $883.60, contingent that he closes on the property by June 1st, 2018.
I'll second it.
Got a motion and a second. Begin voting. Commissioner Bowder?
Aye.
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 Pass 4-0. That's, and
Good luck.
you
That's
got
a huge,
6
yeah,
weeks
it's a
to,
huge drop.
yeah.
7,000 to $800.
Thank you, Mr. Burgess.
Well, if for $7,000, if you look at build on it, that'd be different. I can't do nothing but put up stakes and drill corners. You can come by and get something for free. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the Main Street Sanctioned Barbecue Contest for September of 2018. And before we get into the discussion on this item, I'd like to disclose that there was a correspondence from a private citizen to the commission related to this item. That correspondence was done over a social media messaging application initiated by the private citizen, and individual members of the commission did respond to that citizen. Due to the nature of the social media application, the responses were available to be seen by the full commission, which could be in conflict with the provisions of the Kansas Open Meetings Act, COMA. In the interest of full disclosure, that private social media message and commission correspondence were reported to the city manager and the city attorney. On advice of council, a copy of that correspondence will be provided to the city clerk for inclusion in the formal public record related to discussion on this item. So I wanted to get that out of the way, and now we're, next item is consider the street closure request for Main Street for the barbecue contest.
Mr. Mayor and Commission, I'm going to refer to my city clerk and also ask my police chief to come up, talk about this annual event and the requests made by the Main Street organization. I believe we have representatives from this event here. Wendy and Joey, if you'd like to come up too, talk about this event. And I'll turn it over to Carla to talk about what we have in front of us.
Mayor and Commissioner, this is to consider authorizing the municipal parking lot closure for the Leavenworth Hog Wild Barbecue Contest, and to designate the municipal parking lots specified in the 200 block of Cherokee as alcohol friendly. Last year, Leavenworth Main Street had this same event and requested the same closure of the streets and for it to be alcohol-friendly. So they're requesting this again this year. The following streets would be closed from 12:01 a.m. on Friday, September 7th through 6 p.m. on Saturday, September 8th. It is required that if the commission were to approve that, it has to be done by a resolution, and that allows the event coordinator then to request a temporary liquor permit from the state. And the state does require that that resolution is passed and is designated the area and the times by the city commission. Whenever there'll be actually two actions. You would consider the closure of the parking lot and the street, and then the second action would be to approve the resolution. If you
Two separate actions.
Yes, please.
First action, I guess a little for discussion, is the street closure, as mentioned, and I know the police chief is here. And this is the same street closure we had last year, is it not?
Yes, sir.
And I don't know, Mr. Denny or Ms. Shai can answer this, but I think at 28, 35, well, however many barbecue teams there, and it's an event that starts on a Friday and finishes up on a Saturday evening. Last year, were there any issues reported to you, any issues, drunkenness, assaults, anything?
No, sir, we did not get any reports that rose to the level of a police report or any activity that I'm aware of. On an annual basis, Mr. Denny and the barbecue teams hire a police officer to work overnight security and are present from sometime in the early evening overnight to make sure there aren't any issues. We did not receive any that reported any sort of police matters that I'm aware of.
And even subsequent to that, you haven't heard anything? Because there are some rumors anecdotally that there were problems, but as far as our police records and the security that you have there and the barbecue folks, you know of nothing?
Right, I'm not aware of anything that was reported to us.
Sure.
All right, would you be willing to consider having law enforcement present during the time of the event?
Typically, Commissioner, we will do that anyway on a significant event like that, in terms of whether or not someone is dedicated to that function and they don't leave. We have an off-duty officer program where they can employ the services. That way they are fully committed. That's their station, and they pay to do that for the police department. We've had that program for some time. Now, again, they've done that for many, many years. Now, that is specific to guarding the secret barbecue sauce, I think, more than anything. They're very serious about that. Mr. Denny can talk about that. But in terms of whether there's a significant event that takes place, we're aware of it and we'll patrol it and give it extra service. But if they want a dedicated police officer, we have a program that they can employ if they'd like to make sure that someone's there at all times.
Okay.
But actually, they're taking advantage of that for part of the time, right? What you just told us?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Actually, per the sanctioning regulations from the Kansas City Barbecue Society, we're required to have overnight security from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m.
Okay.
And that's traditionally what we do. And they do have a very great presence, and it's good to see them around during the day, both days.
So, in your opinion, Chief, it's been I don't want to say a non-event from a law enforcement standpoint, but
right,
it has not been a problem for you or your staff?
No, sir.
Or for the citizens. Mr. Griswold?
Mr. Denny and Ms. Scheit, is this the second, third annual? How many years have we been having this barbecue contest in Leavenworth?
The first time I started the whole process in 2000, and there were about 3 years in that time span where we didn't have a barbecue contest. So it's been going on off and on since 2000. And for 2 years, we actually had it on the fort when Main Street wasn't a part of it. It was part of Riverside Resources. But as the Main Street's taken over, we have tried diligently to keep it downtown because that's what they support.
And Ms. Scheit, how does this event benefit the city of Leavenworth?
Well, I think it brings a lot of new visitors to the community and participants, and so they are introduced to downtown Leavenworth if they don't know it, and there's many attendees that come. It's a weather-dependent event as well, but Main Street adds a band on Friday night. Last year and this year, we did have the aerials. We will probably again have that. We have some food vendors. Main Street does the beer concession. And so we make it a festival for that day and a half.
Is this on Labor Day or a week later?
No, it's a week later.
Weekend after.
Good.
Have Main Street ever considered doing it at the Haymarket Square? Is there a reason that you have to have this location specifically?
This location specifically, no. Haymarket Square this is generally a Friday, Saturday event. I'm kind of hard and fast to that simply because of my Sunday activities.
Yes, sir.
The Haymarket Square is rented every Saturday all summer. I respect that, which then eliminates enough space for us to actually do it there. I've actually gone down with a wheel and laid it out, and it just, the math, square footage wise, doesn't really work. I'd like it to work. Electricity and water is abundant there.
Did you have any issues last year, like what we talked about, the chief? Did you hear of any issues, or did you have any complaints?
No, I didn't. We get surveys from the teams, which are, to be polite, pretty weak in how they come in as far as the number we collect. But I will say they all talk. If there's a problem, we hear about it when I show up at 6:30, 7 o'clock Saturday morning, or they'll drag me to the side at any time when something happens. And I don't remember any significant events except our very first year, but that was it.
Were there some things in the surveys that just allow you to improve it like the next year a little bit, you know, over and above what we've been talking about?
You really want to know the biggest complaint? Not enough porta potties.
Okay.
Yeah, that's.
So will you be dealing?
Yeah, we provide sufficient. It's just when they're drinking beer, sometimes there's not enough porta potties. I know at times, some thought had been given, to have the event or some events on the other side of the tracks down at Riverfront Park. And, I know the chief, of police as well as the fire chief have weighed in many times and kind of advising not to have big events, down there on the other side of the tracks for a couple reasons: the safety with the trains, us blocking off that train track with however we may want to do it. We really don't have the authority to do that. We have to go to Union Pacific, and that's has to be done to standards that we're probably not capable of doing. And two, just the safety factor. You know, a lot of kids, you know, some 12-year-old kid or 8-year-old kid's gonna jump that fence and jump into the river, and the police chief has to go in after him. And he's an old Navy man, so he could probably do it, but I don't know if the fire chief is. So that's not really a good place. Now, and I know Ms. Scheit and Mr. Denny, you survey the businesses in the area that could be affected by the shutdown, and what were your results?
I've got a copy for each of you. You want the original card?
How many businesses did you consult with, or?
We got into
20, 22.
We're still waiting to hear back from B&B Theaters. And then the other person.
I sent the Ramage Properties Group a physical letter, and then I emailed Clint Francis, that's the new GM. I haven't heard back from them.
Okay.
So with a board member and Joe, two board members' participation in going around to these different businesses, these are their signatures. And I have emailed Jeannie Hazels and Jeremy Greenemeyer and don't have an answer back, but I just did that.
Okay.
I have a verbal from Jeremy's property manager. He's fine with it. In fact, he said, "Are you gonna need water off the back of the building again this year?"
Are these signatures just evidence that these
We
business owners are okay with?
They're good with it.
Will they stay open, or it just depends, or? Yeah.
We encourage them to stay
Right.
open. I mean, they've got a lot of new customers coming down, and if they'll take the effort to mix and mingle, get folks to know that they're there, you know, they may patronize them that weekend or in the future. I mean, our hope is that many people are gonna be coming back to the community thinking, wow, I only saw a tiny bit of it during the barbecue, and I wanna bring my family back and have a good time.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? If not, I'll take a motion to consider the street closure request as stated.
So moved.
Do I have a
I
second?
second it.
Motion and a second to consider the street closure request for September 7th and 8th, 2018.
I think there may be other people.
Yeah. Please, come up.
Sorry, first let me apologize. It was me who did the faux pas with social media. I did not realize that was breaking any laws. I do totally apologize. I have a tendency to
Announce your
wanna
name,
be-
please.
Oh, Christine Pugh, thank you. I'm the owner of Scrivener's Creative Center in Sona, so I do apologize. My goodness, in my attempt to be open and honest and forthright and not talk behind anybody's back, darn it, I guess I made a big mistake. I'm sorry.
You did nothing wrong.
I'm sorry. Anyway, I do want to talk on this. It's not the barbecue portion that is the upset to me. I teach children, as many of you know, Scrivener's Creative Center. I teach art and music age 2 through adults. This is an event that does have alcohol on it, and Chief Kitchens is absolutely right. We did have an incident last year, and we never reported it because it was us adults, we handled things. We didn't want to make waves or cause problems. I did cancel my students during the Friday of that. I felt it was unsafe for the kids with the alcohol consumption that goes on. Parents definitely felt it was unsafe. I'm not too sure how many of you are aware that in the past year, KBC Kansas has moved into the old KCC building. They're a wonderful organization, but they deal with children in crisis and families in crisis. The people who go there are foster parents, like Judy was one of my artists. I have another artist who has a foster child, and the parents of those children who have had their children taken away, many times because of drug and alcohol abuse. The proximity of the beer being sold to KBC, they are actually, according to the map, and I looked it up, they are in that proximity of what is called the alcohol-friendly zone.
Define the proximity. Are they in the alcohol?
Friendly zone, yes. That
They're
area,
in the.
yes, they are.
So you could walk a beer down
So
there,
you could
okay.
literally go and get a few beers from Main Street and walk into KBC, Kansas. If you decided to ignore the signs like they do, they could continue on into my shop, which is why I don't have any students during that time. I lose money, we all lose money during it, but it's really a safety issue. I have students that are teenagers that sometimes they don't look exactly like teenagers, they're young and pretty, and I just, those things don't mix. I am extremely concerned for KBC Kansas. I realize they signed off on that. I don't think they were aware that they would be in the alcohol-friendly zone. I feel extremely concerned, knowing I have several students that are foster children. I had a parent tonight. I should be teaching right now. My parents were so concerned about this that they said, nope, don't worry about it. We will pick up our kids early. One of the moms who has a foster child was like, well, that's all that the dad would need to go and have a beer or two and then go in for his visitation during that time, or go in and be upset, I just wish it wasn't in the alcohol-friendly zone. A block down even might prevent an accident. Today, I don't know, I read the paper every single day, I'm distraught. We live in a very fearful time in a lot of ways. These are kids. I'm asking that just not on our block.
I understand what you're saying, Ms. Pugh, and as Commissioner Bowder pointed out to me, KBC did sign off on this.
They did. I'm not too sure. I don't know who signed off on it or if they knew they were going to be the alcohol thing.
And that's not for,
It's
they
okay.
signed off on it, and they're not here to oppose that.
Then I'm going to appeal to you as human beings and parents and really think about this and think it could be moved one block towards the east, and that would deter some of that. Move one block east, there's a huge parking lot right there. Goodness gracious, the Carousel Museum could use the attention, and so couldn't the Riverfront Community Center.
I still think it'd still be in the zone, and I understand your concern.
I also know that it's not right there.
I also know that, there's restaurants right in that area, right next to KBC that serve alcohol
Yeah,
on a
but
daily
there's a
basis.
difference. There's a difference between a restaurant that serves alcohol that has trained people that know when somebody has had enough to drink, and an organization that has volunteers who are not trained. I actually tended bar for a long time, like,
As did I,
you know,
as
having
did I,
5 kids.
as did I.
I have no problem cutting somebody off, but a lot of people don't.
And that could be anywhere. But thank you for your participation. Any questions of Ms. Pugh?
Is there a law?
Well, Commissioner, that's the point. You have to, if you authorize a friendly zone, then they can walk around in that zone, and as long as they remain there and there aren't issues. I think that's the purpose of the discussion tonight, and your approval process would be to authorize that. Because otherwise.
But if someone is stumbling, drunk or disorderly, that is not acceptable.
And they can't walk out of a restaurant with a beer. They can't, like at this event,
Ms.
they can
Pugh,
walk around.
let us have a discussion. I'm hearing you. Chief?
Right, I just want to reiterate that in a normal circumstance, a person cannot walk down the middle of the street with a beer in an open container. And so the purpose of the application and the reason for your approval would be to temporarily authorize that for this particular event. That way they can do that without concern of being cited or ticketed for that. But in the event that there were an issue where someone was particularly disorderly or causing a particular problem, we could handle that in a normal fashion. We could remove them if Mr. Denny or anybody from the teams that were competing had a particular problem. They called us, we would remove whoever that was, which would be how we would normally handle something like that.
Are you comfortable with this?
I am. Like I said, Mr. Denny's been doing it for a very long time. I cannot recall an instance that was anything more than very minor that we handled. I just don't recall any issues that evolved to cause us any concern that we can't handle. I'm supportive of it.
Okay, any other questions?
I have a question of Mr. Denny. Ms. Pugh asked us to consider the movement of the alcohol-free zone to the east by 1 block. Is that, from your standpoint, in terms of the event being successful, is that even possible?
You'll need to go to the microphone. Joey, can you go?
In a word, yes, it's possible. From a practical standpoint, from a cooker's point of view, it's nearly impossible because that parking lot has quite an angle to it, and it's tough to level up a cooker or a RV. And it's also got a lot of strange islands in it. That's actually where we started the first few years, and I was at the time concerned for a couple of RVs that had their front trailer hitched this far in the air, trying to level up. Like I say, it's just a lay of the land issue more than anything.
Is this the first year that, I guess it is the first year that KBC is?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And
They were there last year.
They weren't moved in yet. They were but they were in the process of moving in. They weren't having things going on yet.
And we don't normally start selling beer as Main Street till 2 o'clock. There's normally not a lot of people present until later in the evening that actually start purchasing beer, and KBC closes at 5. I just looked online to see what their hours were, and they're closed Saturday. I know that I've attended it, members of my family have attended it, and have not seen a problem. But I appreciate your concerns, Ms. Pugh, and appreciate your input, as well as yours, Mr. Denny, Ms. Scheit. Any other questions from the commissioners?
Yes, would you be willing to start serving beer after 5, after KBC closed?
I would be willing to have Main Street not serve until then.
Okay.
Cookers, part of the alcohol friendly is the cookers bring their own beer with them.
ASB.
Yes,
So on Main Street's behalf, we have a professional accounting firm that manages our beer tent that's in that area. We are all adults. We have never served anyone that's intoxicated. If there's an issue, we would call the police. We have no beer, no alcohol beyond signage that we put out around the entire perimeter of our events. Beer sales is a fundraising arm of Main Street. We sell beer at the Summer Concert Series at Haymarket. We sell it at this one.
events like this require fundraising and sponsorships to be able to put them on. As I said earlier, we're bringing folks to the community, a lot of folks that don't know about Leavenworth. And I think we act very responsibly. We have never had an issue, and we need the 2 parking lots that are back-to-back on the 200 block of Cherokee for the activities. And so moving into the 100 block doesn't seem feasible to me.
Well, Mr. Denny already explained one of the reasons why. I mean, that's very clear. So any other questions?
Yes. Would you be willing to allow people to bring out their beers after 5 when KBC closed? That's what I'm in favor of.
That would be
That's not gonna happen with your
difficult,
barbecue
that would
team,
be
I don't
difficult to
think.
police with the barbecue teams.
What about having an officer present during the event then?
Can I be really
I've
honest?
always seen law enforcement down there.
They hire
The
security.
law enforcement is typically there.
Yeah.
Well, the only reason I'm saying it because of KBC.
Right.
It wasn't.
But
And I
KBC doesn't
respect
issue with KBC, they signed up.
signed up?
And I
Signed up on it.
understand that. The hard part is that I could be Joe Schmo and say I'm with the barbecue and walk around with a beer. That's where we get into this fine line. You know what I mean? I could just
No,
say I
anyone
have
down
to
there
walk
that can
along.
buy a beer and walk around with, they don't have to
They
be
can
with
do
the
that,
barbecue.
but-
Chief, did you have something to say?
I think if the concern is some particular specific period of time while KBC is open, I can have an officer there and specifically monitoring that to make sure that there aren't any concerns about that until they close at 5. I can
Permanently
appreciate it.
there for 3
Yes, sir.
full
I can
hours?
do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the commission?
No.
If not, we have a motion and a second on the table to approve the street closure for September 7th and 8th, 2018 as presented.
Mr. Mayor, I'd probably make the motion a little bit more clear. You have a draft resolution in front of you that does more than just authorize the street closure. You also are designating it as an alcohol area.
Okay,
So
you're right.
the resolution.
Separate resolution.
No, they're both in the resolution, but I
Well,
think.
no, are you talking about Resolution B 2194?
Yes, I thought that's.
That's
what
the
we were on.
second item. The
I was
first
looking at-
part on the agenda, we have 2 separate motions. First part is street closure, then we're gonna talk about,
I suppose I was looking at section 3 of that resolution, which discusses the street closures, so.
so,
I thought
what
that
I have
was
on the
part of the
agenda,
same
I
motion.
have, Ms. Williamson, 4A, consider street closure request, which we have a motion second on. And then would go into B, consider the resolution as separate, or we rolling this all together?
I did it as 2 separate ones, just in case the commission would decide not to approve
one or the
the alcohol-friendly,
That's fine.
and then that
Okay.
way, but
Okay.
since you have it.
So are we okay the way we are now, Mr. Gordon? Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table to approve the street closure September 7th and 8th as presented. Begin voting with Commissioner Griswold.
Aye.
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 Passes 4-0. Next item is consider resolution B 2194, Hog Wild Barbecue Event, the making it for alcohol and liquor.
Before we one of us make a motion, Mr. Mayor, can I say something?
Sure.
Ms. Pugh, thank you for coming and bringing these concerns, very valid concerns, to our attention. Thank you, Mr. Denny. Thank you, Ms. Scheit, because I think we've had a good discussion, and I'm looking at the overall benefit, but I think we've had some mitigation. Chief, I appreciate your weighing in, and I think this is a good thing for the city of Leavenworth, but I do think, and I will support the resolution, but I did want to thank the 3 of you for coming and expressing your views. That's all I have.
I echo that too. I'm sure the rest of the commission can speak to it. Okay, next item is resolution B 2194, Hog Wild Barbecue Event, alcohol, liquor. I don't know, do we want to discuss it some more? Basically, it's making it what's the term? Alcohol-friendly area in the confines of, as specified by the resolution. Any other questions or comments from the commission about that? Any comments? If not, I'll take a motion.
I move that we approve resolution B 2194.
I second it.
A motion and a second to approve resolution B 2194. Begin voting with Commissioner Bowder.
Aye.
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 Passes 4-0. Thank you very much. Thank you all for participating. Next item on the agenda is request for downtown street closure for American Fallen Warrior Memorial Foundation.
I'm gonna turn this over to our police chief, Pat Kitchens, to start on this item.
Mr. Mayor and Commission, the City of Leavenworth received an application for a event to be held in the Central Business District, and part of the application was for street closure on 3rd Street between Shawnee and Delaware Street. And in addition to that, the initial application had a request for the police department to escort several hundred motorcycles through the Central Business District, which I expressed some concern with. Since the time of the application, I've had an opportunity to consult with the folks that are holding the event, and we worked what I believe to be an amicable resolution to that problem. Principally, my concern is that anytime we are blocking 4th Street, and we were, you know, sort of going back and forth through the Central Business District, particularly through the Friday during the day. There's always concern about that, so we try to avoid that. So the solution that we've come up with is the staff is going to recommend to the commission that you authorize the street closure on 3rd Street between Shawnee and Delaware in association with the hotel, and that the law enforcement, the police department would help them facilitate. They would leave the hotel parking lot when it was time. They would get to 4th Street, we'd help them do that, and then ultimately they're heading to Cabela's, which is where it's going to end up, and we would be able to coordinate with our colleagues from the Sheriff's Department, Lansing, and the Highway Patrol to help them facilitate that. So in terms of the policy report, those concerns that I expressed have been resolved, and so I think there's some folks here that want to talk about the event, but from a staff's perspective, we would be prepared to support that if you would authorize that street closure. And sir, let me go ahead and...
How long is the street closure for, Chief?
I think it's 2 hours probably.
Okay.
10 to 12.
10 to 12?
Yeah.
Okay,
Maybe
so
10
10
to
to 12:30 it says, but
Yeah.
I'm still holding to that 2.5 hours. Okay.
I'm Mike Prevost from the American Fallen Warriors Foundation.
Cynthia Soul, the American Fallen Warriors Foundation.
Welcome.
Thank you. So this event that we're gonna hold is a traveling memorial to the fallen men and women from the global war on terrorism. And it's going to start off at the Home 2 Suites in Leavenworth. We're going to start there with a little ceremony. Then they're going to be escorted by the Patriot Guard down to Cabela's, where they'll actually set up this sort of traveling wall. And it'll stay down there for the weekend, Friday and Saturday, during the big Speedway event and things like that, since we've got a big, large crowd down there. And so this part is really just to kick this off and get it moving through town and get it on its way. We expect right now to have quite a bit of Kansas City media up here. We've already contacted a number of the stations, and they're gonna be present. It's just a kind of a high visibility event for us. For us, it's kind of the first event of the season. That's the first fundraising event that we're gonna have towards starting to raise money for our memorial in the Kansas City area. And I brought some little flyers that kind of go into more detail about the specifics of our 501c3 and what we're trying to accomplish.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for being here. Do you have anything you want to add, Ms. Hull?
I just have one request. Could you make a short speaking slot for our mayor? I noticed that there will be some people.
I'll check my schedule and if I.
I mean, I didn't see his.
I'll take care of my own schedule.
Or the mayor pro tem.
Yeah. So looking forward to it. I don't think there's going to be a problem. Obviously, we have to vote on it. But where are you from?
I'm from here in Leavenworth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Leavenworth.
Both of you are Leavenworth. And so you're not with the parent organization. Where is that located?
Kansas City.
Still Kansas City.
It's chartered here.
It's gone through a couple iterations
in Kansas
over the years because we've.
Yeah, it was originally started and launched in Texas and moved up here about 4 years ago, and it's been kind of waning since then. Right. We've just elected a new board, and we've got kind of an operations team that's starting to run some events and plan and prepare these, and so we think it's going to pick up some steam here starting this summer. We've got a lot of support from the Kansas City, Kansas folks, and we're kind of expanding that with some of our local representatives and things like that at the time.
Okay, good. Okay. Any other questions? If not, I will take a motion for the street closure?
I move that we authorize closing 3rd Street between Shawnee and Delaware Street between the hours of 10 a.m. and 12:30 for the welcome ceremony for the American Fallen Warrior Memorial Foundation.
I second it.
Motion and a second to approve the street closure as presented. Begin voting with Commissioner Griswold.
Aye.
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 Passes 4-0. Thank you and good luck. Look
Thank
forward
you
to
very
seeing
much.
it. Are only Harleys allowed? Are only Harleys allowed? So a guy can come down on a Vespa? Thank you. Next item, mayor's appointments. I move to recommend the following appointments. The Board of Zoning Appeals, reappoint Richard Gervasini and Kathy Kim to terms ending May 1st, 2021. Building Code Board of Appeals, appoint Jody Kaz to a term ending May 1st, 2023. City Planning Commission, reappoint Linda Bonsack, Michael Burke, Claude Wiedauer to terms ending May 1st, 2021. Electrical Board of Appeals, appoint Jeff Wagner to a term ending May 1st, 2023. Grow Leavenworth County, reappoint Amy Baker, Jacob Dale, Wendy Scheidt to terms ending May 31st, 2020. Leavenworth Preservation Commission, reappoint Ken Bauer and Richard Jackson to terms ending April 1st, 2021. Library Board, appoint Ellen Bogdan to a term ending April 30th, 2022. Mechanical Board of Appeals, appoint Keith Sanders to a term ending May 1st, 2023. And Plumbing Board of Appeals, reappoint Tim Elliott to a term ending May 1st, 2023.
Second.
Motion is second.
I'd just like to, no problem on the reappointments. I just don't, in terms of Jody Kaz, I don't know, you know, I know the name, but I don't know what her qualifications are to be on the Board of Appeals. And I would say the same thing about Keith Sanders. There's the Jeff Wagner I know and Ellen Bogdan. My concern is that, what is our process for, I mean, I would like to at least see a resume or something that, you know.
They submit that through the clerk's office, so you can look at their resumes anytime.
Yeah, and for some of the people here, for example, in the Building Code Board of Appeals, they, by law, by statute or city ordinance, they must be in the trades. They have to have.
That's good to know. That's good. And so when this comes up, I didn't know that. So when this comes up on the agenda, you know, a few days before our meeting, I will go to Carla if I don't know the person, if that's the way we want to do it. I think it could be a little. We could deal with this at a study session, but if that's the way we're going to do it for the time being, that's what I'll do. I mean, we only have a few days' notice on this thing, and I'm sure they're great people, but I don't know their qualifications, but I do appreciate that information about it.
And not all of them, but some of them, they do have specific requirements that they must meet.
Okay.
I think a Building Code Board of Appeals, Plumbing Board, Electrical Board, a few other things, Mr. McDonald,
There are, I think, in all cases associated with trade, although they're citizen at large positions, that familiarity is the key rather than participate.
And quite often I do take recommendations. Everyone's got a list of all openings, but I do take recommendations from the department heads and the people who run those boards, because they know the people in the trades better than I know the people in the trades, that's for sure. Okay, did we have a motion and a second?
Yes.
Okay, begin voting. Commissioner Griswold?
Aye.
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 Passes 4-0, thank you. 2018-2019 goals that we discussed during our goal setting session April 11th, and then we also had a consensus at last study session to move this forward to a vote. Are there any comments or questions?
I do have some comments, and I'd like to get 5 minutes or less to just, here, can you pass those down, please? And I took the document, and I'd like to explain, I made some recommendations. I made some recommendations, and the recommendations that I made were things that I've heard over the last 3 or 4 months in terms of things that were important that were brought to the attention of the commission. So I used track changes. I mean, there's some minor editing. That's not what I would draw your attention to. In terms of economic development, I think the big one is the lobby and advocate for the VA CMOP to stay in Leavenworth. I mean, that is an issue that Mr. Mayor and the city manager dealt with when they went to Washington the week before last, and I think it's something that needs to stay on our radar, so I would recommend adding that as a goal under economic development. Downtown development and revitalization. I continue to be concerned about the unoccupied and in some cases I think abandoned buildings, but my point here is to use all available methods and tools to try to get these properties fixed up, get them to a standard that they should be at, or get them sold. But I think we have to keep our eye on that. We've got a beautiful theater that's opening, I think later this week or next week, and right across the street at that property at 3rd and Delaware is just a complete eyesore. And as far as I'm concerned, that is safe and habitable in structure. So that's why I recommended that particular addition. And then we got a good briefing about a month ago, I think, from Ms. Scheidt about the wayfinding signs project. So I just wanted to keep that on our radar, and that's why I recommended adding that under downtown development and revitalization. Tourism, on that first one, I just felt that the strategic advertising is important. I think Ms. Lee is doing a fantastic job on that, and I just would like that to continue and for us to keep that on our radar. The others are just kind of, happy to glad type things under tourism. Community improvement. I think the big one is at the top of the second page is the continue actions by the code enforcement officers, which we've been briefed on in terms of, it's pretty specific, identifying the blighted properties, which they've been doing, but I think this is a real important aspect of keeping the appearance and image of the city up to the standard that it should be. So that just kind of talks about what they've been doing, and I'm supportive of that, and I just wanted to keep that there as a goal to keep focus on it. And then under community amenities, I got a little bit more specific in terms of improvements, because I think they're continuing as far as Havens Park, and then I've heard some things about at least explore some options in terms of a new restroom for Havens Park. I've heard people talk about that, and that's just saying keep that so we can discuss it sometime in the future. Public safety, all I did there really was take the one under general. I added a category of general and put support efforts of local organizations such as the Alliance Against Family Violence, which I hope is going to be stood back up soon, and just to support those type of organizations. There are probably others, but that's the one that comes to mind. And then
That's why I don't think it should be specifically stated, and there's some other things here that I don't think should be that specific.
And
in order to look at all of this, I would have to, in order to approve that, I would have to take it home and look at it, because you put a lot of stuff in here without us knowing about it until right now when we're ready to make the motion.
well, maybe we could table the motion. I mean,
I think we have to if
well,
we
that's fine. That's fine. We had one session on goals.
But it's up to the mayor really to make that.
Well, we're probably going to have a vote. I think we can use a study session to go into this in a little more detail. This is one commissioner listening to what I've heard going on in the last 3 or 4 months and giving my input in terms of, I don't know why we couldn't do this at a study session and then, come to a consensus there and then, have another meeting.
Well, I thought we did that already, but anyway.
Second?
I said, look, I thought we did that already.
No, we had one session on goals, one session. And so were you able to think of everything that, impacts our city in that one session?
We're never going to be able to do that. I mean, you could do this, you could study this forever.
Okay.
Could we table it? Or vote for it?
Can we, Mr. Kramer, I think we have a couple options. We could table it, we could approve what we have now, but we could add to it at a future time.
There is nothing legal about this document. You don't even have to pass it. I mean, you can table it, you can discuss it. These are your goals, so you can literally do whatever you want to do.
What I would like to do is move forward with this and keep it as a living document, and then let's add to it as time comes up. Maybe the next meeting, in the study session, we add some more points to it from time to time. I agree with some of the things you have here, Commissioner Griswold. Some of them, I think, what you added, maybe slightly redundant and maybe necessary, may not be necessary, but I appreciate it. But I think that we should get, my position is let's do it, but then let's add to it since it is a living document.
As long as the commission is willing to do that, I'm good with that.
Yeah, and we'll have it, and we did have obviously the goal setting session on April 11th, and last week we had, it was on the study session, was it not? On moving this forward.
No, I don't think we just, no,
moving the goals forward.
You got some key points, you got some key points in here and emphasize some good things. Like I said, I'll be willing to look it over.
Okay. So I'm proposing that, let's vote on this, but keeping in mind that this thing isn't etched in concrete. It's a living document that can be changed, things crossed off, and new things added.
And so we will talk about it again in another study session sometime in the not too distant future.
We'll schedule. I'll work with Mr. Kramer and figure out something on that. If this passes right now with that motion. So, any other discussion on that? If not, I'll take a motion.
I move that we adopt the 2018-19 City Commission goals.
Do we have a second?
I second it.
Motion and a second to adopt the City Commission goals. Begin voting. Commissioner Griswold?
Aye.
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 Passes 4-0. And Mr. Kramer, I'll work with you and we'll work out a
Thank
date
you
to add something to
for
it.
your work on this, Mike.
No problem.
I just I can't look at it tonight.
I got it, and, yeah. That's fine.
Next item, consider bids for comprehensive compensation study.
This will be our Human Resources Director, Lana Lantern, to handle this item.
A little bit, you are. Mayor and Commissioners, presented this evening is consideration for approval of consulting services to conduct a comprehensive compensation study. As 2 of you were present during last year's budget meetings and 2 of you were not, it was discussed at that point in time. The city manager had brought up the need to perform a formal study. It has been since 1999 since we have done so. At that point in time, the budget did not allow for that service to be performed, and during the benefit renewal process, we were able to have some significant savings from what was budgeted for benefit renewals, and with those savings had requested that or a portion of those savings be applied towards the study. That was approved and we moved forward, sent out an RFP and drafted for a classification and compensation study. It was mailed out to 6 different vendors in addition to posted in the paper. That was sent out on March 9th and bids were opened on March 29th. Of the 6 that were sent out, we received 2 bids back from CBiz and Springstead. My HR staff presented or reviewed both of those proposals and also conducted a phone interview with both of them to get clarification on their proposals, ask a few more questions in regards to the scope of services they were providing, and after doing that full analysis and review, recommending or asking for approval to move forward with the study from Springstead. Both companies came in under budget. Springstead was a little over CBiz, however, the level of services they provided for longer lasting services that the city could do, a little more objective than what CBiz was offering. Springstead offers basically a system that allows for the classification of jobs instead of just using market studies and job titles. They're doing a thorough analysis of the job classifications as well as the content of the jobs to do that market study. That classification system that is copyrighted through Springstead will be ours after the study as well. They will provide training and instruction manual as well as the methodology to complete classification for any future jobs or any reclassifications that we do. Both firms provided the similar options for the market survey and data analysis of surrounding entities and up to about 20 different entities that they would market a benchmark classification of the jobs. Roughly about 65 to 75% of the jobs that we have would go out on that classification study.
I want to make a couple comments.
Go ahead.
Since this was something that I really wanted to get in front of the commission last year, and the commission was gracious enough to put it in the budget. Any professional organization, the idea that you could go 20 years without having a thorough review of your positions and your compensation schedule is a discredit to the organization. I think this is something that is important to me as succession planning and professional development. The employees to feel that there's an investment in making sure that everything is done fair and equitably. I want to point out that I don't know what's going to come back from this study, and I don't want to set an expectation that we'll be able to fund all the recommendations that come into this, but once we get it, maybe we'll look at a phased approach. But this is really a crucial tool for the city for personnel management. So that's just what I wanted to say.
Currently, our all jobs in the city have a pay point system attached to their position.
Correct.
Using the old Hay Point out of Philadelphia.
From 96, 97, yes.
Okay. Quick question for you, Mr. Kramer, maybe Mr. Waters. I know that this is an RFP. An RFP is different than a bid, is that correct?
I think you're referring to an RFQ rather than an RFP. And we do reserve the right for qualified bids to make a decision based on the quality of the bid and how it fits the needs of the city.
But this isn't a bid item where they both met it, we still can we didn't have to take the lowest bidder necessarily.
Right.
Yeah, this is such a unique type of service and item as well. This isn't widget and widget as well.
So someone couldn't come in and say, here's the specs you gave me, you know, even though it's like Mercury and which you took someone else.
Yeah, I think this is such a specialized service of that type of thing that's not a concern.
That answers my question.
I have a question. What is the period of performance for this contract?
The duration, about 4 to 6 months.
4 to 6 months. And just very briefly, what are the main primary deliverables that you will get as the head of personnel and the city manager? What are the main
results afterwards?
Yes.
Scope of services that they're performing is, number one, the market survey.
Okay.
So they will conduct the survey based on that 60 to 75% of our jobs, which is 98 right now.
Okay.
They will throw out the actual analysis of the job content versus just the job title.
Okay.
So when they receive those results, they will do the thorough analysis. It is up to the city manager and I to give them direction on what we want to set as that benchmark normal. So whether it's 50 percentile, 60th percentile, they look to us to provide that number and can provide more than one, obviously.
Okay.
They will also do the classification study, which is, again, using their copyrighted program, where they go in and do the analysis based on the job content, which includes their years of service, their level of experience, et cetera, to classify into a rank, basically.
Okay.
We have, as Mayor Preisinger mentioned, the Hay study that we've been using, which also ranks them.
Okay.
This will give us a new system, more user-friendly system moving forward. It is an Excel-based program, and whereas now it is all paper and there is no format to it. So when they do the classification, they will provide the suggested minimum maximums for the salary ranges in addition to any classification changes.
Right.
They will also do a review of the job descriptions and FLSA exempt, non-exempt status, and the market survey information, and again, we keep the copyrighted program for future use for classification as well.
Thank you very much.
The Hay Group even, is the Hay Group even around anymore?
I'm not sure.
They didn't throw
They
in,
did not,
I mean,
no.
they controlled corporate America from late 70s through the early 2000s. I'd say 90% of corporate America had the Hay Group do the points on every job, from the floor sweeper to the CEO. Okay, any other questions, comments?
Yep.
If not, I'll take a motion.
I move that we approve the proposal for the compensation study, consulting services with Springstead Incorporated, not to exceed $45,600.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second to approve the comprehensive compensation study awarding it to Springstead. Begin voting with Commissioner Bowder.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Passes 4-0. Next item, consider bids for 2018 pavement management project granite seal program.
Mike McDonald, our Public Works Director.
Thank you, Ms. Lane.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, this is a continuation of our annual pavement management project. This is the granite seal portion. It is a large contract to continue with the granite seal through kind of the central part of our community. Plans were prepared by Affinis, and we advertised for bids and received two qualifying bids, and that were well within our budget. We recommend that the City Commission approve the bid submitted from Harbor Construction in the amount of $518,210.40. That is for the base bid and the alternate bid. Even though this is actually approaching the end of April, we are being told by our recommended contractor that it is unlikely that he can get to the work until August, because there is a lot of work in the community this year. But August is much better than October, and we do recommend that we award this, and we are working with them to see if there are any other windows of opportunity within their schedule that would suit our needs.
So you're saying they would start in August? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. It'd be about 10 days to 2 weeks worth of work.
Okay. How many miles of street are you doing? I'm sorry, Mr.
No, go ahead.
And there's about 10.5 miles in the main bid and another 3.5 in the alternate. That's, I believe, somewhat more than we did last year. It's been a fairly successful program. Chip seal type programs in the past have had their issues. The granite seal and some of the new technology and the asphalts has reduced that. We do receive a few complaints of loose chips and such. We added sweeping to the requirements beyond the normal 2 passes. We've added a 3rd one, and we have gone back and swept streets that have issues with some of the rocks that have not stuck as well as they should have.
Good example of a granite seal street in the last couple of years was Lawrence Avenue, Spruce, north to Cherokee. There's a couple other ones too. What are a couple other ones?
I think 18th Street out there.
21st and behind.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it has, kind of reflects light. It looks
sparkly.
Sparkly, yeah. Like okay.
Mike, can you talk about how the streets are selected? It's a pretty interesting process.
We have been using a pavement management system for the better part of 30 years, probably more like 25. And the streets were selected, or they're rated, how many square foot of potholes or cracks or this sort of thing. And as times get tougher and we get busier, we found ourselves, we were rating streets about 1/3 to 1/4 of the streets each year. So you end up, your data gets somewhat long of tooth, and you're using people. They may be fully trained and cognizant of the issues, but they tend to see things differently. So as the economy suffered after 2008, one of the things that we didn't do or got cut back is the program was scaled back as far as we did not do a good job of rating the streets. And so we recognize that if we're going to use numbers to rate streets, and there's different philosophies of what you do with the numbers, but in essence, a brand new street is like a rating of 98 or 99, and nothing's perfect, so you don't see too many 100s. And if your streets fall below essentially a rating of 50, they start to be more in the reconstruct. And between 50 and 70, you're better off spending your money, say in the 50 to 70 range, to prevent them from getting less than 50, to preserve your investment and your quality. And you do limited work on, say, streets that are higher than 70. And those are fairly arbitrary points, but most programs fall into that range. Well, we didn't have good ratings for our streets, and in 2016, technology had progressed that the city commission had budgeted for in the pavement management program. We hired a firm called Stantec to come do 100% scan of the city streets with their super duper van it's got radar penetrating and
looks like a Google car.
Yeah, this Google car on steroids, and they did 100% scan of all of our streets and provided that information in 2016. And it was an interesting jolt to the system to see how their numbers taken objectively compared with the numbers we were operating with that were based subjectively. And we came to believe that our streets were worse off or less good than we had been believing. And as a consequence, we've approached the commission in January of 2017 with this program, reviewing the Stantec report and saying we need to do this massive chip seal program to address that middle third, or the third that's higher than the failed streets, to keep them from getting bad till we can get a handle on funding or approach or something like that. And so in 2017, we did a pretty large program. This one will be larger in 2018. And we anticipate in our design to have the third one in 2019. And by then we will have, we've talked about the work on 20th Street and some other large projects that are looming out there. And in a broad sense, our goal in January 2017 was to scan the streets again every 3 years after we've completed the third year to see what we've done. So we're hoping to do that 2019 after the work is completed for the year.
Great.
Question. I noticed there wasn't any streets from the northeast located.
We did a lot of work northeast last year on chip sealing. And one of the other things that you're bumping up against too is a lot of the streets in the northeast quarter of the city are brick streets. So they never really get, if you pave them over, you grind it all off and you pave them with asphalt, they were really pretty nice for about a year or two. And then they get all lumpy. And they just stay lumpy forever because the bricks underneath all move. So there's, I think if you look at the work we did last year, it was mostly the northern third of the city. I don't recall specifically what streets we did or did not do, but a lot of the issues in northeast Leavenworth are trying to manage the brick streets. They don't get too many potholes, but they kind of ride lumpy no matter what you do to them.
So you really don't do this type of program, this granite seal program on the streets that have brick on them? You have to do something?
We do, but it's really to preserve the surface, the quality or the lifespan of the asphalt. It does really nothing to improve the quality of ride. It's always going to be lumpy. Say, Mike, you're here. Streets last year?
I don't remember the entire list of the streets, but yeah, the major portion of the project last year did include the streets in the north and northeast part of it. The project next year will include higher rated streets over the entire city. It was basically a 5-section program that we set up. The first 3 years would do the ratings mainly between the 50 and 75, and then the final year of it, which in 2019, we would go back and hit some of the streets that were rated higher that we felt would probably fall into that lower rating after 4 years.
And then in 2020, we'd start over.
Take another look after the scan data to see where we want to go. Okay. And it's sad to say that 30 years ago, if you had $1 million, you'd have a heck of a street program, but it doesn't go as far as you'd like it to today with material prices being so much higher. We did hit some really happy spots along the way. At one point we were fairly robustly funded and asphalt prices were low and we paved a lot of streets with the Melvin overlay, but we can't do that now.
I have a question for the city manager on the amount of money, because this is about $518,000. Now, I think $1.35 million is the capital improvement amount of the budget for roads and streets. So the balance, have we already spent the balance of that?
It's a good question.
$1.35 million?
So about 518, give or take, thousand on this. 500,000 of that goes to 20th Street.
Okay.
So 20th Street is this will be its 4th year of 5 years, and then it'll be done. Okay. The commission in last year's goal setting or the year before, we started a program where we do one downtown parking lot a year, where we completely tear it out and then reconstruct it. That's about $100,000. Okay. And then we always pay for the next year's design with some of those funds. And it's hard to get it right on because you don't know how bids are gonna come in. And sometimes on 20th, we're able to go a little bit farther if the bids come in, but that's approximately where the funding goes.
Thank you.
And we haven't put that project on 20th Street out to bid yet, but there'll be, I think the curbing was all done last year.
The curbing for the asphalt project on 20th this year was done last year. The final portion of the curbing will be done with this year's project. There's about $200,000 in curb we do with that
We do
project.
1 year ahead with the curbing.
So we try and keep 1 year ahead on that.
Any other questions for Mr. McDonald, Mr. Hooper, or Mr. Kramer? If not, I'll take a motion.
I move that we approve the low bid submitted for the basin alternate by Harbor Construction for the 2018 pavement management granite seal program, not to exceed $518,210.40.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the 2018 pavement management program as presented. Begin voting with Commissioner Griswold.
Aye.
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 Passes 4-0. Thank you, gentlemen. Next item, consider bids for the wheeled skid steer loader.
Mr. McDonald will continue with this, and I believe we have our operations superintendent, Curtis Marks here.
You have a cow catcher.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, this is a budgeted replacement of our existing skid steer loader. That's the generic term for what people refer to often as Bobcat, which is a brand name. We try to avoid that. But this one is wheeled rather than tracked, just for some maneuverability on the type of work that we do. Curtis worked with our office and with vendors to identify the key parts that we need for this, and it was the price includes a utility broom so we can sweep up our job sites more efficiently, and a new they call planer or mini milling machine we use extensively on potholes and other projects. The bids we received really were not controversial, and they cover material, and we would recommend that the City Commission approve the bid that we received from, I believe it was Victor Phillips, in the amount of $70,983.
Welcome, Mr. Marks. Haven't seen you for a while.
Thank you, sir.
Good to see you. Always good to see you.
Good evening.
How long do you think this will last you?
The machine itself probably about 10 years.
Does this replace a current piece of equipment?
It's actually, in addition to, we have an older piece of equipment, a case that's a 2008 model. And it's seen its better days definitely, but we're keeping it in the workforce to help assist with multiple jobs that we're doing. We're doing more pavement, asphalting jobs, and it actually aid us in getting jobs done more efficiently.
I think the key thing here is the new milling head on the with the skid steer. The one we have now is the constant maintenance. It was wonderful when it was new, but that was what, 20 years ago.
Right.
And this will be a big help in having the other one available to hit system projects where you don't have a milling need. And this is bigger horsepower to run a bigger machine.
Any questions? Mr. Bowder? No? Now I'll take a motion.
I move that we approve the purchase of the 2018 case skid steer for not to exceed $70,983 from Victor L. Phillips Company.
I second it.
Motion and second to accept the bids for the wheeled skid steer loader as presented. Begin voting with Commissioner Griswold.
Aye.
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 Passes 4-0. Mr. Marks, when will we get it? You tell them
60
tomorrow?
to 90 days is what we're
That long,
expecting for turnaround, yes.
We're going to contact them, see if they can find one sitting around that needs a new home.
Okay,
Good.
good. Yeah, because you're going to
Thank
be
you.
end of summer before you get it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Next item, consent agenda.
I move to approve claims for April 7th, 2018 through April 20th, 2018 in the amount of $832,890.15. Net amount for pay number 8 effective April 13th, 2018 in the amount of $314,394.97. No police and fire pension.
I I second.
Motion and second to approve the consent agenda as presented. Begin voting. Commissioner Bowder?
Aye.
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 Passes 4-0. Other items, discussion among commissioners. Commissioner Griswold.
I'd just like, would the commissioners consider a future study session to kind of capitalize on our discussions as far as the strategic goals and the spring-wide cleanup that took place, and both events took place in early April. I've got some ideas, and I'm sure the other commissioners do too, in terms of some things that we can do that won't necessarily cost a lot of money. And I would just like to have a study session to discuss some of those things that I'm thinking we could do, and I'm sure that the other commissioners would have input on.
Okay, I can, I'll work with Mr. Kramer on putting this document on, and it'll be a good time to discuss those type of things that we can come to agreement on. Commissioner Wilson?
Yes, I was informed by a citizen on 11th and Potawatomi that they used to have streetlights in the back of the house, and he said they were removed. He said, but they were never replaced. He just wanted to know why.
Is it a West Star issue? West Star?
I don't know specifically, but typically lights in the back of the house are property owner installed. The city has essentially no street lights in alleys.
Okay.
There are some street lights in northeast Leavenworth that were installed mid-block at one point in the past. But if you give me an address or something more specific,
I'll email you. Yeah,
that would be fine. We'll take a look at that.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, anything else? Commissioner Bowder?
Do we want to announce, did you want to announce the new? Not tonight, okay.
Anything else?
I don't have anything else, thank you.
I have nothing. Mr.
I
Kramer?
do have
Yes,
one.
sir.
Right now, we'll have no study session next week on May 1st, but we will have a pretty robust one on the 15th. We have one or two fall through for the first, so we'll move those to the 15th and look forward to a lively discussion that night.
Okay.
So we're not having it on the first, just?
Right. Well, there'll be no study session on the 1st.
Okay.
So May 15th.
Will be our next study session. We'll have a regular meeting on the 8th.
Next meeting, 2 weeks from tonight.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Mr. Waters?
No report, sir.
Ms.
Nothing?
Williamson? Nothing else? Take a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're